Hi, it's Hillel Neuer from UN Watch, and I'm standing in front of the United Nations Human Rights Council headquarters here in Geneva, Switzerland, and I've just looked at the program for the upcoming annual session that will take place here in March 2019, and I want to tell you what I've seen. There are going to be a record 7 reports against one country, Israel, whereas no other country in the world is being singled out in this fashion or in this degree. 7 reports against Israel alone, not a single report on China, on Turkey, on Pakistan, and you go around the world. Zimbabwe destroying its own civilian protesters every day, nothing. 7 reports on Israel. I want to tell you what's going to be in those reports, and then I want to tell you what I want to ask each of you to do this coming March. One of the reports, one of the 7, is the report of the annual special rapporteur, Michael Link. He's the expert, so-called expert on Palestine. The only place in the world that he looks at is Palestine. He's supposed to look at human rights in the whole region, but he only looks at Israel. All he does is investigate, quote, Israel's violations. There's going to be his annual report. It's going to be a biased anti-Israel report. There's going to be a second major report. There's going to be a report by the Commission of Inquiry into the, quote, large-scale peaceful protests on the Gaza border. That's right, the thousands of terrorists and civilians that Hamas sends to Israel's border every Friday in order to provoke Israeli gunfire from the soldiers defending the border. These individuals will be rewarded by a commission of inquiry that has already determined that their so-called peaceful protests are peaceful and civilian. This is an outrage, and the commission of inquiry is going to issue its report on March 18th, Monday, right behind me at the UN Human Rights Council. That's the second report. The third report is going to be a report on what we call the blacklist. It's a BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions database of settlements of companies that dare to do business across the Green Line, including in Jerusalem, in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem. They're going to be named and shamed, listed on a blacklist. Effectively, this is the United Nations creating an international BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions blacklist of international companies. There's going to be a report on that on March 18th as well. We're looking at another 4 reports. I'm just going to mention one of them. There's another report on the Golan Heights, as if that's one of the world's great human rights places of violations. In fact, Syria is committing genocide against its own people, and ISIS is slaughtering thousands, and there's going to be a report accusing Israel of human rights violations in the Golan. And perhaps most absurdly of all, there's going to be a report seeking to implement the recommendations of the 2009 Goldstone report. That's right, 10 years after the infamous Goldstone report, a document that excoriated Israel and that was cheered by Hamas. That document is going to be held up, and its recommendations are going to be used to they're going to seek to implement the recommendations of the discredited Goldstone report. Remember, Judge Goldstone himself, over a year after the report was issued, renounced the report. So the very report, the Goldstone report, that Judge Goldstone himself renounced, he said if he had the information that he had, he would not have issued the same report. The report accused Israel's military and political leadership of deliberately murdering civilians. So the very Goldstone report that Goldstone renounced is going to be held up, and they're going to seek to invoke it, the recommendations of the Goldstone report. All of this is happening on one day, on March 18th, Monday 2019, behind me at the UN Human Rights Council. It's going to be a black day, an assault on Israel. It's coming up soon. And, you know, enough is enough. Enough is enough. In New York at the United Nations General Assembly, we just ended in December, 20 resolutions on Israel, 1 on Iran, 1 on Syria, 1 on North Korea, and 20 on Israel. There were 6 on the whole world combined, on 20 on Israel. At UNESCO, every year, the only country they condemn is Israel, where they denounce the Jewish state. They claim that Jewish holy sites, if it's the Western Wall or the Temple Mount or the Tomb of the Patriarchs in Hebron, that these are Palestinian World Heritage Sites. It's happening across the United Nations. It's happening year after year, day in, day out. But March 18th, 2019, behind me at the UN Human Rights Council is going to be, to the best of my recollection, a world record, an unprecedented amount of reports attacking Israel. There's going to be at least 5 resolutions. And it's time to say enough is enough. To single out the Jewish state repeatedly while giving a free pass to the world's worst abusers, enough is enough. Israel is not perfect. Israel makes mistakes. Israel can and should be held accountable. But the relentless, obsessive, pathological, and I'm going to say it, anti-Semitic singling out of the Jewish state, the attempt to demonize and delegitimize the Jewish state, enough is enough. We just marked 70 years since the Declaration of Human Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was adopted here at the United Nations. And that was meant to bring to the world universal human rights standard. But the repeated singling out of Israel means that those standards are not universal at all when they're applied so selectively. And what we're going to do is, on March 18th, 2019, in this square at Place des Nations, in front of the United Nations headquarters of the Human Rights Council in Geneva, Switzerland, we're going to gather. It's 10 years after we held a major rally at the Durban II conference, and we're going to hold another major rally. Those of you who seek to fight injustice, to say that this repeated demonizing, delegitimizing of Israel and the Jewish people is wrong, and because you care about human rights, because you care about democracy, because you believe in universal human rights standards, I urge all of you to join me, to join world figures, leading figures, members of parliament, human rights activists, military experts who know something about where the real human rights abuses are and where the real laws of war are being violated, are going to gather here with hundreds and maybe thousands of people from across Europe and around the world. And I'm urging all of you to join us. Come here to Geneva on March 18th, 2019. More details will be provided on the website of UN Watch, that's unwatch.org, or on our Facebook page at UN Watch. And you'll get all the information you need about what's happening at this rally, which will be to stand for human rights, to stand for democracy, and to stand for Israel in face of this biased, pathological, relentless assault on the world's only Jewish state. I invite all of you to join me to say enough is enough, and to join me here on March 18th, 2019. Thank you.